which by Dr. David Perlmutter, which has been an amazing journey. This book is has certainly heightened my awareness about the connection between the gut and the brain, and all the brain, how many brain disorders are caused by the condition of our gut, uh, with that vagus nerve moving from uh, the gut to the brain and transmitting. So when people say, I have a gut feeling, there really is another brain in the gut. So uh, Stacy is at a board meeting today, but she is so, uh, uh, she was just uh, able to get one of her colleagues to come in and do the overview for us. And that's the kind of diligence Stacy has. Even when they were on vacation one week, she came off the beach to do her review. So we appreciate her work. So we have Dr. Nikisha with us, and we are so happy for her to do this review. And Dr. Nikisha, let us hear from you at this time. And welcome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Moselle. Thank you for creating this space, and for Stacy and Bertha Rance for inviting me into it. You're right, this is an excellent book. Moselle asked me at the beginning of the session, have I been reading along? And I told her, honestly, I've just been looking at the menus and the food list. But this 8th chapter is definitely one you want to look into. You want to specifically read this one, is simply because this is where we begin rehab. And in any rehabilitation experience, this is where the practical knowledge comes in. Things you can actually do, actionable steps you can take to begin to deepen this connection we have between our gut and our brain. So we begin chapter 8 with feeding your microbiome. And these are just 6 essential keys to boosting your brain by boosting your gut. And so Dr. Perlmutter actually says that you can actually shift the gut bacteria in as little as 6 days. And I'm about to share with you how. So that was encouraging for me because there's so much damage has been done over my adult years. It was encouraging to find that there are really 6 things that we can start doing immediately. And in interest of time, I'm going to go through these very quickly. And the first thing is to choose foods that are rich in probiotics. And so give yourself, as I give this list to you, give yourself 1 point, score 1 for every fermented food that you're already using as a part of your diet. And the main fermented ones that were covered in this chapter were live cultured yogurt. So that's 1 point if you're doing that, tally yourself. Another is kefir. That was new for me, and it actually has more bacteria, or good bacteria rather, than yogurt. I'm sure you're probably drinking kombucha tea, so give yourself a point for that. Tempeh, kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles. There's a reason why pregnant women eat pickles. They're so high in probiotics. Pickled fruits and vegetables, cultured condiments, and fermented fish, meat, and eggs. So hopefully you gave yourself several points for that. Number 2, go low carb, embrace high quality fats, and of course, fiber. And Dr. Perlmutter wants us to avoid diets that are just focused on grains and carbs. We know what that does to our bodies. We have been getting so much information over the last 4 weeks about that, because diets that are high in those grains and high processed carbs, those are what he calls gut-busting, microbiome damaging gluten foods. Moselle just talked to us about those foods that are high in gluten, because they have very significant downstream effects on your brain. So if you want to transition and be successful in rehab, the Brain Maker foods follow a very general paleo template, and it includes, of course, vegetables, low sugar fruit. So we got our glycemic index tonight. That's one of our handouts. fermented foods, and healthy fats such as olive oil, coconut oil, grass-fed tallow, organic butter, ghee, avocados, and the like. So number 3, which was actually new for me, I didn't see this recommendation as one that I considered, I guess, in a plant-based diet, but the connection to improving your gut health is high on enjoying wine, coffee, and chocolate in moderation and unlimited amounts of tea. And of course, that section really talks about the research behind those foods and how beneficial they can be. And I actually saw a post on Instagram just last week about this line of organic wine that people have. And of course, we've heard about CBD coffee and organic coffee. So that's something that you might want to read about in the chapter as well. Number 4, choose foods that are rich in prebiotics. Had never heard that term before, but in a nutshell, these are foods mostly that are fibrous, that gut bacteria love to eat to fuel their growth and activity. So these are non-digestible foods that are fermentable, and they're actually able to be metabolized by your gut bacteria even more so. So foods that are high in prebiotics, again, get your little counter out, give yourself a point for all of these that might be a part of your diet. And that's garlic, chicory, onions, leeks, jicama, Mexican yams, and sunchokes. And of course, add to that some leafy greens, some raw dandelions, and some raw asparagus. And number 5, this one goes, of course, without saying, we want to skip the chlorine and fluorine and other heavy metals that are found in our tap water. And he, of course, suggested getting a filter either on your tap or a filtered system under your sink. And that will help to bust up those gut busting chemicals that are hard to generally avoid when you go out to eat or you're drinking naturally coffee and tea at your house from the tap. And last but not least, number 6, he encourages fasting every season. So this week would have been a great week to fast. Of course, every quarter, if you can find it in your schedule to fast. So he cites this great, interesting research, and we have a lot here that we've researched and gotten over the last few weeks, and a lot of history on why occasional and even regular fasting is so helpful for maintaining your proper microbiomes, right? Fasting can be done in many ways, such as calorie restriction. That's one way. Or the other is what Moselle told us about in the first session, that was intermittent fasting. And that is completely restricting yourself for 24 to 72 hours from food. He does say to pile up, of course, on liquids, lots of water, avoid coffee during a 24-hour fast. And if you take medications, of course, you want to seek professional or medical support through your physician during a fast. And now he also recommends that doing this again at least 4 times a year and at least seasonally. So that is my huge experience with chapter 8. Is actually very good if you want to begin to start making some strides in your diet that actually gives you some great, significant, almost overnight changes in 6 days. Review chapter 8. So my biggest takeaways were that I love the fact that fermented foods were a top priority, and that resonated with me because of the very general food recommendations that many of you are probably already using. And I was particularly encouraged about the emphasis on quality organic foods. When we buy foods, if every effort we can make them organic is just a plus for our gut. And I did enjoy reading the part about the coffee, and I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I do love tea, do love chocolate, and I hadn't had wine in the last 6 months, but sometimes those foods are typically high pesticides foods. So you do want to read that chapter and do your own personal investigating on that. But again, anything to, as Moselle just said, to strengthen your knowledge of this connection between your gut and your head is going to be good for your physical and your literal and figurative heart. Back over to you, Moselle.